Today, we're going to make a mess on the table. Let's start with the box, which has a simple repeating design. This copy arrived with its original German warranty card. Now let's take a look at the instruction manual. Myself included, I think very few people knew that the plug was detachable from the cable. I certainly wouldn't have known that without having the booklet here, which also tells us the difference between low and high gain on the plug adapter, where low is for use with tape decks, which typically have an output impedance up to 8 ohms, and high is for amplifiers and receivers with outputs up to 600 ohms. This is a set of very lightweight on-ear electret headphones by Toshiba from 1977. The diaphragm is 51mm in diameter, 2.5 microns thick, and has an aluminium vapor deposition coating, which is what gives these drivers their shiny appearance through the grills. Sadly, these are not mine, and they're almost in museum-grade condition, so I won't be disassembling the headphones to look at the driver today. The headband is a single piece of aluminium alloy to which the suspension strap is lightly attached with one tab on each side for adjustment. Simply pull the headband out of the tab and pop it into whichever hole you like. Each cup is attached to a single horizontal swivel and slider. Unfortunately, there is no vertical swivel, but in principle, with such a lightweight headphone, it's not such a big comfort issue. Obviously, the artificial leather coating on the ear pads has not fared quite as well as the rest of the headphone, as it continues to shed all over the table. Normally, the only sealed pads to survive this long are made of vinyl. Moving on to the cable, it is decently long at 2.5 meters, and curiously, the transformer plug at the end is detachable. I'm not sure what the purpose of this is, perhaps safe storage or transport, as it's quite heavy, so dropping the plug and tugging the cable might have been too much strain on the parts. Overall, the build feels great for a product of this age, especially the combination of materials and style. Just looking at it, you can't help feeling that it was something a little bit more special, and is certainly up there with some of the better looking headphones ever made. For some context, at around the same time, the Fostex T30 planar headphone was listed for almost the same price. Between the two, there are some clear pros and cons, which would have made it quite difficult for some to pick between either of them back in the day, assuming people even had the opportunity to audition headphones back then. The obvious drawback of electrets is immediately apparent in their lack of bass performance. The problem may also be twofold. First of all, electrets, while operating on the same basic principle as electrostatics, do not generate new static charge with every use. They are designed to hold onto a permanent charge, which inevitably gets weaker over the years. So it's difficult for anyone to say, with any certainty, how badly these have suffered over the years, or how they truly sounded when they were new. If we take the frequency response graphs as gospel, then the bass performance is significantly weaker than that shown by Toshiba's original graph. With that in mind, I'm quite impressed with its ability to receive a very strong bass boost with the use of my Fuzzy Audio SK01. Bass volume and impact raises back up to what I would consider normal levels without obviously distorting. The main attraction of electrets in general is their lightweight, transient speed, and usually a linear mid-range. The HR-X1 is no exception, but those positive traits lag behind what planars of the same era were capable of. While those old planars still lag behind in their vastly heavier weight, treble and raw detail, electrets such as the X1 were simply not as linear as similarly priced planars of the day, and despite what my graph shows, the treble also brings quite a weak performance, once again also defying Toshiba's own graph, possibly also suggesting that the static coatings really are well and truly cooked. Even so, they're not the most difficult headphones I've ever had to drive, yet I could not get a convincing performance out of it, no matter which amp I used or how much tone correction I applied. I think it's a great bit of engineering and design, but ultimately falls very short of a musical experience today. The staging is less than typical, even for a large on-ear headphone, with a very tunnel-like presentation that also severely lacks dynamics. To give some further context, for a few years I also owned the Toshiba HR-X1, which was technically a very similar headphone, albeit in a much more clunky frame. Despite being a little older, I think the HR-11 benefited in some ways from having a larger frame with the option of larger earpads, but even more severely lacked bass and resolution. Of course, it may have also been subject to more use or abuse, and since I can only draw upon anecdotal memories for comparison, I think that doesn't give us much insight. I have also tried some other electrets many years ago, which had drivers that were believed to be produced by Audio-Technica originally. I recall having a much more favourable impression from those. Every vintage headphone enthusiast should at some point in their life own or try out an electret, just to get the general idea of the flavour. But I can't say I would necessarily recommend this one in particular. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.